Hey everyone, Dan here today, not to talk to you about a particular audiobook, but instead to introduce you to my good friend Pedro. He also has an audiobook channel, Dro Talks. I've mentioned him before, definitely check him out. He does some really good videos, really good recommendations. And this is just kind of going to be, it's something him and I have been working on. We've been wanting to do a collaboration together. We have similar tastes. We both love audiobooks. So we kind of wanted to introduce each other to each other's audience. So this is me wanting to introduce Pedro to all the followers of my channel and say, if you like my channel, you'll definitely like his channel. Go check it out. So Pedro, why don't you introduce yourself and say something?
Hello, Danny again. Thank you for having me on your channel. As you know, I'm a big fan, so this is exciting to be here. My name's Pedro Garcia. You know, I go short. Dro is short for Pedro. I've been doing videos for about a year and a couple months, a year and 4 months, something like that. And they've all been centered around audiobooks because that's where my passion is at. I have a long commute to work every day. I do a lot of traveling during the year, cross country type traveling, and audiobooks has just been a big part of my life for quite a while now. I thought I had a very large library till Danny told me what his size of his library was. But between the two of us, we got a gigantic library.
But it'd be interesting to see how many books we share.
That would be
You know, how many books I have that you have, so that'd be kind of cool to figure that out and see that.
Yeah, that's a video in itself. That's for sure.
How big is your library?
I want to say last time I checked, it was about 175 titles.
You got a good sized library then.
Yeah.
And what is the main focus of your library? What type of books do you mostly have?
I want to say it's the majority do center around sci-fi. For whatever reason, I seem to continuously rotate between that. And then second would probably be fantasy. Recently, I actually listened to a couple lit RPG books without realizing they were lit RPG books. I thought they were kind of odd. I liked them, but I didn't know it was its own thing. And then, but now I've been really kind of enjoying the lit RPG train, for lack of better words. But I do have a pretty diverse library. I do, if someone recommends a book and they believe in it, I really like to listen to it. I am a Stephen King fan, so I do got a lot of the Stephen Kingish books. I do like horror, but I like ghost type horror, not graphic like butcher type people getting butchered horror. That I can't watch it on TV. I can't even watch pretend operations, so much less listening to graphic type. I really can't handle it. But a good ghost story, I'm all about. I do like that. So those would probably be the main genres around my channel, or I mean my library, which translates to my channel.
So then I'm kind of curious because you mentioned something there that actually made me think of me. We both served in the military. You were in the Navy, I was in the Marine Corps, which, for those of you who don't know it, the Marine Corps is Department of the Navy. We spent a lot of time together and we worked together. Originally, the Marine Corps was founded to be the snipers and to protect the sailors and especially the officers when the old schooners would do their battle with each other. And we still work very closely together. I've spent 2 years on board ship, so I know how common it is for accidents to occur on board ship. And I've seen some kind of gory stuff happen in training and on board ship and in Desert Storm. None of that ever bothered me. But I can't even watch someone getting a shot or I'll faint. Are you that way?
Exactly. I was luckily while I was in the Navy on the ships I served on, we didn't have any type of accidents. We watched videos, so I do know how gruesome an accident on a ship can be. When those lines break, I mean, people lose limbs and things of that nature. I mean, it is no joke. But I was lucky, even I did serve under Operation Iraqi Freedom. So I was in the Persian Gulf, and Minesweeper is a very tiny ship. I know you mentioned your ship. This is like one of the ships that your ship probably drops down to go on taxing people, probably about that size. But I'm the exact same way. I can't watch it. I did listen. I got a book. It wasn't really a horror book. Well, I guess it was a horror book. It was about a serial killer, and it wasn't even that bad. I mean, considering how some books can go, this guy, he drilled bone marrow out of people's shins. That was the worst thing.
Yeah, I can't even listen to it. I'm like,
oh. Every time that part came out, I would just 30 seconds, and I would just skip it because the book was good. But just like the way they would, I completely skipped that. But there was
something about purposely doing that to someone. The slow, but my wife loves to watch medical shows, and I can't do it. I just why would you want to watch that?
Same boat.
So it's not just me.
No.
So you served. When did you serve?
I was in the Navy from 2000 to 2006.
What was your job? You said you were on a minesweeper. What was your job, or can you say?
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can say. It was an electronic technician. So,
cool.
Yeah, I maintained the radars and the comms. Of course, there was a group of us. We all did it together. A lot of maintenance.
I've got a nephew right now who's a radar tech on a destroyer.
Oh, great, yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Actually, I think I can say where he is because nobody knows what ship he's on. I know what ship he's on, but they're in Japan as well. They're touring around that area right now as well. We're kind of hoping him and Jonah will meet up together.
Oh,
so did you listen or read a lot of books when you were in the Navy?
I did, actually. One of the main reasons is, as you know, there's a lot of idle time while you're on a ship. We would be out to sea. We were on a small ship, so our deployments were relatively short. I think the longest one we were around was about 2 months. Because the ship could only sustain itself in the ocean for so long before we had to refuel. Actually, at the time where we were out for 2 months, we had to restock pretty much everything like 3 different times at sea. But the job that we had was actually a pretty tedious job. There was a lot of free time, and it was a very small ship. So the one thing that ship had was a large library. And that was one of the things I did. I would normally get through about 2 books a week. I read books I would have never otherwise read because of the limitations of the library. I was blessed or not blessed being on a ship with a lot of readers.
Yeah.
So we'd be fighting for books. But I enjoyed it because, again, it did open up I was a lot more focused, like fantasy. That's when I read The Hobbit. That's when I read Lord of the Rings. So yeah, so the fantasy was a genre that I've heard about, but it seemed kind of silly to me. I don't know why. It didn't really call. Then I read The Hobbit, and it was just like opening a door to another universe. So yeah, I read quite a few books while I was in.
I didn't even know if my ship had a library. But my job was the opposite of yours. Even when we were out at sea, I worked a lot even when we were out at sea. So that may have been the difference there. And when did you first get into books?
Well, I've been a lifelong reader, I would say. I don't come from a family of readers, so I definitely was an outlier. I mean, I had family members that read, but it wasn't a very common thing. But I remember being a kid, I used to really look forward to the book sales that the schools would have. And my mom,
Scholastic book sales?
Yeah, oh yeah. And I'm a big, like, when they come out now with my kids, we spend money. I'm like, you guys get whatever you want.
Yeah,
and
Scholastic book sales are awesome.
And then, so, when I found out that there was such a thing as a library, I would go to the library and I'd get in the same type of books at the Scholastic book sales. I did fall out of it for a while, and I want to say my pre-teen years, I was too cool to read for whatever reason. And then, but it only lasted a short time. By the time I was about 16, I was reading again. And then I joined the military, the Navy at 18. And, as you know, this is the first time you're away from family. You're completely by yourself. And books are like a very trustworthy companion, so...
Yeah.
You get, you can reread a book with characters that you already know, and you feel a little bit less alone. That helped me out a lot. Because kind of like what we were talking about on your video, this was when I was in. It was when cell phones were barely becoming a thing. They were becoming more economical. I did have one, but it was like one of those plans where it's like free nights and weekends, where the night started like at 10 p.m. and I was always in a time zone where everyone I knew was already asleep by the time the free nights rolled around, and you had like 200 minutes during the week, so it was a lot more isolated. So definitely books helped out a lot on that end.
And when did you make the transition from books to audiobooks, and why did you make that transition?
So that actually, again, a lot of the origin of that comes back from the military as well, because I would always travel back to my place of birth, which is Las Vegas, New Mexico. Check out my vlog. I did that trip a little bit ago. I felt like a mini Danny Bates there, a mini trucker. But it's always been a long drive, in excess of 1,000 miles, depending where I lived. And you can only listen to the same song so many times. And it was actually one of those that I finally picked up. I bought an audiobook. I want to say I bought it at Barnes & Nobles or Hastings. I'm not sure which one. And it completely transformed my commute. And it turned something that I dreaded doing into something I actually looked forward to. It enhanced it. Because you always look forward to going home to see family, but no one looks forward to a 30-hour drive. But all of a sudden you get a few audiobooks in you, and it just becomes like, ooh, like even to this day, I plan a trip and I look on the specials on Audible or on my wish list, and I'm like, what are we going to be listening to today? So it definitely changed the way I commuted, and then that translated into some other parts of my life as well.
Did you ever have that experience where you arrive at your destination and you're just at that point in the book to where you're like, I don't care if I've been driving for 30 hours, I can't turn it off. And you sit there for another half an hour, 45 minutes, because you've got to get to a point where you can end the book.
Absolutely. I've done that more times than I'm proud to say.
People are peering out the window at you going,
why is he still in his car?
What's he doing? Is he coming in?
Absolutely. That's the dark side of audiobooks. That's the side they don't tell you about.
Yeah. So what do you like to do now? You've got the long commute. You mentioned that. Other than the commute, do you listen to audiobooks while you do anything else?
Yes, definitely. I know my wife loves that I listen to audiobooks because I have become the best housekeeper. No one likes to clean their house. I used to hate. I used to absolutely loathe washing dishes. My first job as an adult was washing dishes as a dishwasher, and I swore I would never do it again. Now I volunteer now. Hey, I'll wash the dishes. I put on the audiobook.
Dishes tonight, listening to an audiobook.
Yeah. And my wife really gets into it because I wash the dishes. Like you said, that one part comes out that you just have to finish. So I transfer to the stove. I clean the stove. The oven hasn't been cleaned in a while. Before I know it, I'm sweeping and mopping, and everything's immaculate. So definitely cleaning.
All you wives out there who see these videos, get your husbands hooked on audiobooks, and they'll start cleaning the house for you.
It'll work.
Yeah. I do it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely housework. Yard work is a big. Again, it's real hot down here. I hate cutting weeds and grass. I actually like it in the wintertime, but the summertime it's the worst activity you can ever. You wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. But you put in that audiobook and it just makes it worth doing. It really helps make any type of chore enjoyable. It really does. So I know on you had mentioned that you do wood burning as a hobby. Mm-hmm. I come from a long line of carpenters. The talent completely missed me.
Maybe you just need practice.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. But I do some woodworking, and I even when I'm doing that, I crank up the audiobook and cut me some wood and try to make something. Sometimes it's a win, sometimes not so much. But anyways, it's a good way to relax.
Either way, as long as you got a good audio.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So yeah, those are the areas. I used to listen to audiobooks when I worked out. I still do once in a while, but I did notice, especially because riding my bike, I did notice it made me slow down my pace. I don't know.
Really?
I would just kind of get into a groove, and then I wouldn't challenge myself in the ways that I was wanting to. So now I listen to more music when I work out.
Okay, that's interesting. A lot of people do both, or one or the other seems to be popular.
Oh,
And now that portion of the video where we've got to ask the questions that like always get asked.
you broke up there a little bit. Let me see my no.
I said favorite. What's one of your favorite authors?
Okay, so I'm gonna do a similar answer to you. My author selection has evolved, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve as new authors come out with new takeaways and new ways of entertaining me. I still am a really huge Stephen King fan. I think he's one of the best at world building. John Steinbeck, I've really enjoyed every single book I've read of his. I haven't read all of them, but all the ones I have read have just been.
We got to check that he is out.
Oh, it's just. I would compare him to Stephen King, but not horror based or sci-fi or supernatural. I mean, just real world, but the world just comes alive the way he brings it together. And then, but now I am I found a new author. He created a series that I just absolutely fell in love with. His name is Drew Hayes. The series is the Superpowered series. He's also the one that wrote Fred, the utterly uninteresting Tales of Fred the Vampire Count, which is another great series. And
Swords and Sorceries.
Yes, I've only read the first or listened to the first book in that. That's one I really need to, and I enjoyed it too. I need to get back to that one. But as far as superpowers, I listened to that whole series, which is huge. It's each book. I think the first book starts off at 26 hours, and by the time you get to book 4, it's like a 65-hour book. I mean, it's an undertaking.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've listened to them a couple times. I mean, it's really good. It's a slow-paced, in-between slice of life superhero type book, but I really enjoy it. And so I think one common thread to me as far as narrator is world building. I really enjoy having a world, or in these days a universe, because we're starting to get to a level where our little planet isn't enough anymore. We got to go outside it. So I think that's probably for authors. Like right now, it'd be Drew Hayes.
And how about narrator? Any favorite narrator?
Well, my favorite narrator, that is a hard one. I actually had an answer for this. The narrator I seem to go to most is R.C. Bray. He has a voice very specific to a certain type of genre of book, which is military sci-fi, or anything in between those two, either sci-fi, military, or military sci-fi. It's kind of weird because he's actually not the most talented narrator. He has a very deep voice, and for whatever reason, I never get the characters confused. So props to him, but it's not drastic like some narrators. It sounds like 5 or 10 or 20 different people. He's not that good, but for whatever reason, his charisma or whatever it is about him, if I see him in a book, even if I don't know the author, and even if the book don't sound like something I might like, I normally will pick it up just based on him. But some other great narrators is Kyle McCarley from the Superpowers universe. He is fantastic. I mean, the Superpowers universe, again, 62-hour book 4. There's hundreds of different characters, and never did I get any of them confused. It's just very talented individual. Ray Porter's another favorite of mine. So those are the 3 that come to my mind right off the top of my head.
And then the final question would be, what's one book that is a non-secular, non-religious book that has had the biggest impact on you? And it doesn't have to be non-fiction. It could be a fictional book, just one book. But I'm not looking for like the Bible or the Quran or anything religious based. Something non-religious based that's really had an impact in your life and in who you are?
Well, I would say that book would probably be The Hobbit. The Hobbit I read when I was older. And like I said, that book pretty much opened a door to fantasy, to Lord of the Rings, to I can't think of his name right now, but he's a very Salvatore.
R.A. Salvatore.
Yes, and like all these books that I absolutely love, and also the size of the Hobbit. For whatever reason, I don't do it intentionally, but it's a book I read normally at least once, sometimes twice a year. It relaxes me. I really just enjoy the story. Bilbo Baggins to me is just like the perfect hero archetype. I mean, I really love his transformation in it. It's just a story I really enjoy. It's a story I've read to every single one of my kids at some point in time, and whenever anyone that doesn't read asks me to recommend a book, that's a book I always recommend as a book you can start to read.
Well, I ended up with one more question then, based on your answer to the book that's had the biggest impact.
Okay.
The Hobbit. What do you think of the movie? Have you seen the movie?
Oh man, yes, I have. I haven't read I can't remember the name of the series that J.R.R. Tolkien released. I think it's called The Cimarron, and I'm assuming that they expanded the Hobbit in the movie using parts from The Cimarron.
Oh, really?
I'm assuming because I liked the movie. But I really don't think they should have made it a trilogy. I think they should have just made The Hobbit the book, and just made that into a movie, I mean, you could have pretty much done it word for word. And I think it would have been a much better movie, and they tried to extend it. There's a scene, there's a part in the book where, Gandalf says he's going to go investigate a necromancer, and he leaves his group, and then he comes back. But you in the book, you never see what Gandalf does. In the movie, they actually show that he goes over there. There's this orc that's kind of like following him, kind of like a bloodhound. So I did like the movie, but I don't think it was as good. So Lord of the Rings, I think, was very well done.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they leave out tons of information.
They had to, but they didn't actually change the story any.
No, I mean they followed
They just cut stuff out.
Yes, and it was just done masterfully.
Yeah.
And The Hobbit, I mean, there was romances that weren't really, or at least, and I've read the book a lot of times that that's not there. There's side missions that never really happened, main characters that weren't really, other than just being mentioned.
I hate that.
Oh man, and it just, and it's funny because my wife actually really liked The Hobbit. And I hate being one of those book movie snobs that's like, they changed that.
What? I'm a book movie snob, and I got no problem with that. If you're gonna make a movie based on a book, I better be able to tell the book without knowing the title. If I've read the book, I better be able to watch the movie and go, oh, that's based on this book. And I love that when I do that with a TV series or with a movie. And I go, oh, honey, that's based on this book.
Yes.
But then you've got the ones where you're like, other than the title, how has that got anything to do with the book? And I hate that. So I'm a snob about it, and I got no problem with that.
Yeah, well, and The Hobbit was one that it hit me here. I was definitely saddened on how they decided to interpret the book into a movie. It's not a bad movie. If there was never a book, I think I might have enjoyed it, and anyone that hasn't read the book probably would enjoy it. But if you've read the book, you just ask yourself why would you do certain things, So
yeah, I haven't seen the movie because I've talked to people like you who loved the book and saw the movie, and that was what they told me. It was one of those, and I was like, okay, I'm just not going to watch the movie. Then I'll stick with the book. I know I love that book. I will stick with the book.
And then it's even worse because they made it 3 like 2-hour movies. So at least you can forgive a movie if it's like 2 hours. They destroy your book. At least, well, I lost 2 hours of my life.
Oh, it wasted 2 hours, not 6 hours.
Yeah, but it's like 6 hours. I was like, what? I was like,
I just wasted a quarter of a day.
Yeah, it was. I was sad. So yeah, not a Hobbit the movie fan. If you like the Hobbit the movie, more power to you.
Then read the book, and you'll probably like the book even better.
Absolutely.
So let everyone know where to find you. Give us your channel. I don't know if you do any Twitter or any kind of stuff like that. Let anyone know where to find you.
Well, actually, so thank you, Danny. Yeah, my channel name is Dro Talks Audiobooks. You can find me on YouTube, on Twitter and Facebook. I'm just Dro Talks, and I will include some links to all that good stuff in the description, so you can find me. I am not very social media. I'm a novice, as I like my Twitter.
You're probably better at it than I am.
Yeah, I'm not a young pup. So, but I do have those links, and I do engage when I can, and I will include all that there.
All right. Well, thank you. And as I normally finish, if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you like my channel, subscribe, turn on notifications. Questions, comments, feedback, it's what the comment section is for. Put them in there. But most importantly, no matter what else you do today, make sure that today you listen to at least one really good audiobook. And if you want to know of some, go to Dro Talks and check his channel out. He's got some excellent recommendations on there. Thank you. We got it done!
We did it!